See if I can find a shady spot over here. How about right there? Alright guys, so you got the widget guy here. Looks like today may be the last day for the old XR650L. It's a great bike. I've just gotten older, and I never really recovered all the way from the COVID, and so I have breathing trouble, so I don't really take this out in the back roads. So I've been just doing more V-Strom, KLR, and DR stuff. And with the DR getting you know, the upside down forks and a little bit more off-road, I don't think I need this one anymore. So I'm got it on Craigslist, and there's a gentleman who may be coming out in the next hour or so to pick it up. So I thought I'd do a quick review. A lot of people have always asked me to, you know, do a, since I own all three, to do a shootout. So anyway, this bike, it's a 2008. They've stayed the same since what, 94, and they changed colors last year. It's got 7,600 miles on it, and God, I bought it with like 2,000, so I've only ridden it 5,000 miles. And the reason for that is, once I got the DR and the KLR are better on the highways for doing my longer trips. This kind of got pushed in the back, you know, unless it was something where I needed a true dirt bike. So then I would drag this out, or if I just wanted to get out and ride it. Now these XR650s, it's the lightest of the three. You know, the DR's pretty close. This weighs like 340 something. I think DR's in the 360s. KLR's, you know, the big girl of the bunch, and pushing fours. But this one here, it's got the God, what is it? The JRS engineering triple clamps, and the CR450X forks, and the CR450X front wheel and axle and all that. So it still drives the stock speedometer. And the stock forks are good enough. This was just kind of a freebie on another bike I had purchased for cheap, and I just swapped the parts of mine and kicked the other one to the curb. I have a video on that. So you don't really need it, and especially for if you're not pushing it and stuff. The stock front end actually works very well. So anyway, I made a little list, and I already talked about the weight. It's the lowest in the class. It's just so light, nimble. It handles, feels like a dirt bike. The weight balance on this thing is excellent. You can really push this thing off-road. I would actually take this bike out and on a vintage motocross track. I think it's just that good, just that quality of machine. And then speaking quality, out of all the bikes, nothing has the Honda quality, and the other bikes are good. KLR, it's like it was Neanderthal created, but I like the old thing anyway. But the Suzuki's good quality and stuff, but there's nothing like the Honda quality, and unless you've owned a Honda, it doesn't make any sense, because every little thing is engineered to the 9th degree. The other thing is suspension. This is one of the few ones. The DR650, it comes really soft suspended. The XR650, it has, when it comes with the stock forks, it has cartridge forks. DR still doesn't. KLR still doesn't, even with the Gen 3 KLRs. The rear suspension on this is, you can hammer the crap out of it, man. You can hammer the shit out of it. And yeah, it's got great manners. I mean, you can come flying down the desert road and in and out of a wash, and this thing won't kick or buck or anything. It just takes it, and you get on the gas and move on. The handling on this thing, like I said, I would take this on the vintage motocross track. I would not take a DR or a KLR on the vintage motocross. This I would. This one actually has great handling. You can kick this thing sideways. You can come in and out of a rut, and you know, it'll hold the line. It tracks beautifully. The back end comes out. You just keep the power on and roll on through it. So the handling on these guys are great. On the street, of course, it's really good. And then I've talked about the quality. The seat control layout on this thing, it's just like a motocross bike. I've never put an aftermarket seat on this thing because I don't think it really needed one. You know, the other bikes I have Sargent seats on it. But the seat's good. I haven't had to move the handlebars back or forward. Everything's been perfect. I did get taller bars, but that's just for me. You know, that's just one of the little things. The foot pegs, I did pull those foot pegs off from the other XR where I got the forks and stuff. And they're just, I think they're Speed and Sport, but the Japanese copies are fine. This is the one bike where it's got the folding tip shift lever. It's got the folding tip on the brake. DRs don't. Everything is just thought out on this thing. You know, the rack, it's nice. That's an aftermarket. The motor's all stock. I do have the jetting kind of dialed in. It's got the FMF Powerbomb header, and the best exhaust I found for this is the Lex, because it's not too loud. I used to have the FMF, and that was too loud. I went through a couple of these rock deflectors on the disc, and I finally just bought the fin because I was tired of replacing, I think they're about 30 bucks, the plastic covers back here. I have the foot pegs that go with it. These are actually motor mounts off an RM500, but I'm not going to haul passengers, and I wanted something to run the bag straps through, and these weigh absolutely nothing. You know, these marks here are from the bags that I strap on and wrap through there. I am giving the guy new panels. I think I have this one for it. The motor, I can park this thing for months. Give it some choke, some gas, it fires right up, and it acts like, you know, because I've come out and I've expected the pilot to be plugged or anything or something like that. Never had that happen. It's just a great bike. I had the J&S Engineering headlight on the front, but I went back to the stock headlight with an LED bulb. It was way better. And then this windscreen is from Australia. It's Screens for Bikes. They were the only one who I found who made a windshield for this, and because I did want something bolted to the bars. So anyway, this one here, I really like it. It keeps enough wind off me to where the road trips are better. And the XRs come with a horrible looking front fender that kind of looks like it melted in the front. And this is off of a XR400. And these are 20 some bucks. I've been running the K270s on this. I did have the Tractionators on, but I found for the highway, they were just too noisy for me. Oh my word. I never went with the smaller back taillight. Like I said, this one's kind of out of the way. This one I don't really mind. There's not a lot of crap that hangs down like on the KLR or the DR. You don't need a tail tidy. And at one point I was going to do the battery box mod where you put the small lithium battery under the seat. But I just went with a lithium battery in the original box, and I felt that was good enough because all I wanted to do was get rid of the, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 pound battery that was hanging off the back end. And by going a lithium normal size battery in the back battery box, I achieved that. And then that way, when you need to access the battery, you undo these little tabs, they just turn, and you undo this rubber cover here, and then you can get to it. Say I need a jump, or I just want to, you know, charge it. I do have the USB or the battery tender plug here, and every week I switch from bike to bike with my little lithium charger. And one thing, if you get one of these and you live somewhere hot like here, I found the temperature not only on the Trail Tech, but on the little thermostat or thermometer here, not thermostat, that's sticking in the neck where all the oil's kept. But I found the oil temperature, you know, almost going up to the 300 degree level, and that scared the crap out of me because I have heard of problems with valves sticking in the guides because they get so hot. So I did mount the Sutton oil cooler. I have zero problems with it. It did okay, but it didn't lower the temperature like I wanted. And then one day I was riding down the highway, and I could feel there wasn't a lot of air getting to it. So I put this scoop on. I have a video on that. And once I put the scoop on, it pulled the air into the cooler, and the highest I've ever seen is like 250 degrees. So I know people have had comments about the scoop. It works. I've never had any motor issues. Yeah, it's just one of those things. I do have the Ricochet skid plate on it, and that's been excellent the entire life. Checking the oil on these is different because it's stored in the frame tube. That's just something you have to get used to. This is, usually you'll check the oil and then go ride. This is one of the things where when you come back from a ride, you wait about 15-20 minutes, get your gear off and stuff, unload the bag, and then check the oil because it'll drain all back into the engine and you'll get a false reading. So you want to check it about 15-20 minutes. That's what I've done. And I've never, there's been guys who have run these things low on oil because they don't check it right. They'll come out and check it. Oh my God, it's like a quart low, then they overfill it. So that's the only kind of funky thing about this, but it's an easy fix. I've never changed the levers, the brush guards. They've all been perfect. These are the stock mirrors, and they got the rubber vibrations on it. All the bike I've been happy with. I mean, if I bought another one, I'd probably just throw a cooler and a tank on it and go, So on here, I'm 6'1". I have a, I don't know, I buy 34, 36. I don't have any problem with this on the height. I did put a lowering link just because it was on the one bike I bought. And it has been good because sometimes I found myself kind of tiptoeing like on a hill or something like that. So I did put the 1-inch lowering link on it. I think it's a Kuba link, and I've been happy with that. I'm glad I swapped it. I was thinking I did need it, but it's always good. Sometimes you're just tiptoe balancing, and it's paid off. And it was a free part. I got it off the other bike. Let me see. For gearing this bike up, since I do like to ride to where I'm going to off-road, I couldn't just put a 16 tooth on. There just wasn't enough room up on the counter shaft, so I had to go bigger on the back. And that was no big deal. I didn't have to cut the chain or anything. I would just swap the rear sprocket if I needed to go back, or I would just put the 14 tooth on, and then that would balance it back out the stock gearing. So as far as like just switching counter shafts, it wasn't as easy as the DR or the KLR, but it was still very cheap with I think it was a $24 rear sprocket. Yeah. Oh, there it is. 42. Went with a 42. So it's got 42 and a 15. Air filter access. Don't need any tools. You don't have that little dorky plastic nub off of a DR650. They were got to kind of, I'm not sure if it's in. Air filter is really easy. They come with paper. I've been running a Uni since I had it. No issues. KLR air filter. It's okay. You gotta unscrew things. This thing here, you could actually replace an air filter in 2 minutes. It's just that easy. That goes back to the engineering on these bikes. The ProLink suspension's great. The stock Shawa cartridge forks are great. It's a shame and a crime that the DR doesn't have cartridge forks. The KLR doesn't even have 43mm forks yet, let alone cartridge. And that's all gens. Let me see. Ignition module, I've never had a problem with one. When I had jetting changes, I did put a newer one in, but I had jetting issues. But now that the jetting issues are out, I haven't had any problem whatsoever. I do carry an extra just in case, but I've never had one go out. But that is something that people talk about. And it's super easy to carry it. It's about this big. You know, you throw it in your toolkit and off you go. And they're fairly cheap. They're down to under 20 bucks on Rocky Mountain, you know. So I've heard mixed reviews, but it's better to have something than nothing, you know. The other thing is the poor range of the bike. They come with probably the smallest tank in the field. And, you know, I had to go back to the Cherbys tank. This is the one that came on it, that the guy had put on it before me. I've never been able to get the mileage out of these like I've gotten out of the DR. You know, I've always said, just a general rule of thumb, this is 35 miles to the gallon. The DR is about 45, and the KLR is about 55. That's just kind of like my flight planning fuel, you know. God only knows why the KLR gets such good mileage. You know, the thing weighs 75 pounds more, and I'm going to put these here. And, you know, it's just a beast of a bike, but you would think this would get the mileage, but it doesn't. So, it's just the way it is. But like I said, best I've ever gotten on this one is like 41, 42, and that was when I was just doing about 40 miles an hour, cruising down the roads, kind of looking around. A little bit of 2-lane blacktop, not freeway. But you put this thing on the highway and expect 35. If you get 37, you know, it's a good day. And let's see what else we got. The one thing I never liked about this bike is the gap in between first gear and second gear. It drives me nuts. You can like hit a hill in first gear. You're doing great. You put it in second. Oh crap, the engine's bogging. So back in the first, and you just have to learn to scream it up a hill or through a sand wash or whatever you're doing. The motor will take it, but you just kind of have to learn that the shift ain't going to get you anywhere except for in trouble. So, you know, when I had a 14-tooth sprocket on here, it was perfect. And if I just used this bike for the desert, say I trucked it out to the desert or something like that, or say I was going to truck it up to Colorado, go on a ride up there, I would put the 14-tooth on with the stock back sprocket, because that lowered the gearing enough to where you only needed first for a stump puller gear. But if you were like climbing a hill in second, then there was no gap between third, and you just motored on up. So for off-road, and it would still do 70 down the highway, but you're buzzing it. And I just don't like to take care of my bike, so I would usually just do 65 and try and do a 2-lane blacktop. Never had any trouble with the wheels, the spokes, anything like that. I did put a chain and sprocket on it when I got it, just because it had the original one on it. Yeah, it's been a great bike. The other thing is there's no cush drive on the back, and so that's why ever since I've had it, I've run the Fritzco front sprockets on it, and that's just a beefier sprockets. They're made in USA. There are other people making them now, but I try and support the guy who lives here in this country, and he came up with the idea of the big wide sprocket. Some guys put the 650R sprocket on, but it still isn't as good as the Fritzco sprockets. And yeah, and then I did put this cover on just because I was on eBay one night and it was like 42 bucks. And nowadays they do have Chinese copies of these. But like I said, XR only, American company. I try and do that if I can. And the one thing on this bike that the other bikes don't have is I always have to relearn myself when I'm riding it, because this bike, when you back off the throttle, it's got a lot of engine braking that the DR and the KLR don't have. I mean, it's like where if you back off the throttle and you're on pea gravel in a turn, you can feel the back end wanting to slide out. And so I always just you have to kind of relearn to ride, and then just keep a little bit of gas on as you downshift, and then you don't have that problem. And the brakes are excellent. Um, it's just the Honda quality. The Honda's always had the better brakes, in the old motocross days, and I'm an old motocrosser. See what we got. And I think that's about it. Would I buy another one? If I was in my 50s again, I would never be selling this. But like I said, just health problems. Even talking, I get winded nowadays. You get me working hard on the dirt bike, and it gets kind of scary. So I think it's best just to stick with the cruisers. But yeah, I would buy another one. And like I said, I'd probably just throw a cooler on it and a big gas tank and go. If I was going to do highways, I'd get one of these screens for bikes, because this is the best way to go. I've watched guys where they have the windshields mounted on the handlebars and stuff, and they're always coming loose. I've never had any issues with this. I've never had the God, what tank is it? This is the Turbis, and it's the 4.9 gallon tank. I think I would go with that, because I've heard guys love those things. This was just on the bike when I bought it, and I had the 4-gallon tank, and I just needed that little bit extra. And guys, that's your review on this thing. Yeah, that's about all I know. So, it's not something you got to sink a lot of money into. You can just take these things off and have a good time. It's more dirt bike than street bike, but it's street enough to get you there. And that's all I got to say about the XR650. Yeah, it's a great bike, and I would recommend one. So I'm going to get home. The guy's going to be coming over. Hopefully he'll buy this thing, and I will move on in my ways. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I had everything on the list. Yeah, electronics are solid. I've just never had an issue with this thing, and I just love it to death. I just can't let it sit. So anyway, widget guy out. I'm going to hop on this thing and head for the barn. Maybe I'll help them load it up. I got all the extra parts for sale. For sale. In a box ready to go. Not for sale. And yeah, this thing has always started like that since I got the jetting. I think it's a 52 Pilot 152 main for this bike. I know others vary due to modifications, what part of the country you're in, but yeah, this thing has just always, I can have this thing sitting in the garage, and for 2 months, pull it out, pull the choke, hit the gas, and it'll fire up. It's just an amazing machine. Yeah, I just dearly love this bike. No, I've never had a problem with it. It's never left me stranded. It's always just sat here and purred, or it's always just hauled ass whenever I needed it to, or got me up a hill. This is the bike, if I was on the DR or the KLR and I saw a neat trail that I knew they couldn't do, this is the bike I would come back with the next trip out there, so I could ride up that hill or ride down that tight trail. This is the bike that you would take if you were uncomfortable doing it on a DR650 or KLR. It's just that good. And that's about it, guys. I'm gonna hop out of here. I'm sure this cop's wondering what the heck I'm doing, but yeah, it's all good. I just come over here. It's handy. Widget guy over and out. You guys take care. Bye bye. Ah.